Good afternoon, and welcome to another segment of Business 101, Interview with the Experts, brought to you by the Economic Alliance. These are short 5 to 10 question interviews conducted with experts in fields applicable to small business success. My name is Mason Duke, and today I am grateful to be joined by Allan Peterson, who is a certified business advisor and international trade expert with the Washington Small Business Development Center. Allan, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
All right, Allan. So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about your business background, if you could?
Yeah, sure. After college, I spent 26 years in the chain drugstore business, managing chain drugstores, and which is kind of a far cry from where I'm at today. But in 2004, I had known about the Small Business Development Center, and I always thought that would be a terrific position to be in. And so they had an opening here in Moses Lake where I'm located, and I applied, got the job, and then in 2020 I switched over to international trade. So and that's what I've been doing since. That's the sum of everything there.
All right. So you've been with the SBDC for a long time, about 20 years, but just in the last few years, you switched over to the international trade specialty. Now, what exactly does that role at the SBDC consist of, and what does an everyday day at work look like for you?
So we work with people in at any stage of exporting that they may be. They may be just beginning to export. They may have been exporting for a while. As small to medium-sized businesses is who we work with. What does a day look like? It can start as early as 3 a.m. if I'm emailing back and forth from Korea. That's their middle of their work day. So if you want to get them, that's a good time to get some folks. The day starts with following up, doing some research, possibly for clients that I've had. Also, let's see. Oh, well, we work with companies, in all stages. So it might end up being like a market entry, market strategies. Pricing is a big deal. Logistics is a big deal. There's a lot of facets to the exporting that is much different than doing domestic work. So a lot of them is we are working with our partners. And what I mean by partners is we belong to a group called WEOT, which stands for Washington Export Outreach Team. And that's on that team are people from the Small Business Administration, the Exim Bank, U.S. Department of Commerce, Washington State Department of Commerce, Department of Ag, Washington State Foreign Ag Service, Western United States Ag Trade Association. I think I named everybody. But we do referrals to those folks if we have clients that might benefit from services that they have, and we refer them off, and they refer people to us. We typically, as in the SBDC, we're the people that get in the weeds with clients. The other service providers provide a service, but we help with the strategies. We help with how that fits into a client's export business wherever they're at. And so a lot of times we'll get referrals from those other agencies to say, hey, here's a business that needs help, and they're going to need some financial, pricing, reviews, that kind of a thing. So that's kind of how we fit into that group. But there is no wrong door. We say if you're export and you need assistance, you can reach out to any one of them, and we all know each other. So it works out really, really well. So a day might include working with clients and working with our state agencies, federal agencies to help folks in their export business.
Now, you mentioned working with a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that are looking to export products, which is interesting because I think a lot of people have a preconception that only large firms deal in exporting a lot. So I'm curious if you could provide some examples of the types of businesses that you're helping to export products, and maybe if there are any Washington business products that are being exported that people might find surprising or unexpected.
Well, basically any product or service is if there's a market for it, and a business always starts with a market, you can you can do exporting. A lot of people start exporting because they get an email. I ask people, "Well, you've been exporting?" "Yeah." "And how'd you start?" "Well, I got an email from Panama or Vietnam or something, so yeah, we've been shipping there, and the fact is that may not be the best market for them. It's just somebody had an interest, and so but in small businesses are that's our realm. That's where we work, and we worked with. I had a small boutique cider, excuse me, cidery that shipped to Korea last year. I've worked with a flour mill that's now selling in Korea. We worked with breweries and distilleries. We're now working with aerospace companies. A lot of those are in the defense industry, but they're really pretty small. Gooey ducks, that's probably one of the most unusual ones. It's a delicacy overseas, and so I think I actually wrote one down here. Nothing much more exotic than gooey duck, but specialty grains. I work with a lot with specialty ag, value-added ag, that heretofore, mostly that's a lot of what we work with. And part of that reason is we have really good relationship with our Department of Agriculture, and they have contractors in, I think, 7 different countries. So we can communicate with those folks in other countries, and they're kind of the boots on the ground. And so that's of a tremendous value for our businesses. So.
All right, so let's say that a Washington small business, like you mentioned, gets an email from somewhere like Panama expressing interest in buying one of their products. But this company's never exported before, and they're not sure how to get started. What are the sort of first steps that business would have to take in the process?
So if somebody's contacting you, they probably are a seasoned importer, exporter, possibly. I always like to say, in the United States, we haven't really had to go out of the country for lots of things. If you want citrus, you go to California. If you want iron and steel, you go to the Great Lakes. You want a loaf of bread, we grow that right in Washington, or apples. We have basically everything, but the rest of the world pretty much has to live with importing. And so to get started, it seems like mystical almost. There are some things that we got to work through, but first of all, we want to make sure you're in the right market. And if somebody is willing to pay for the product, we'll set up terms on how that will work. There's several different logistics terms to help provide pricing. We worked with people through that. But really, market entry or strategy as far as research, and we do research at the SBDC. We have a group of interns that are trained in international trade, and they have some databases that they use that a small business could never afford. So we actually can provide research and give some of the best locations for a company that with a certain product that they may be a good fit. Or the product they have may just need to be augmented a bit to make it a good fit in other countries. And so we do market entry strategies, and that's finding a good partner. It's very important to have that partner in another country. That might be a buyer, it might be a distributor, maybe a retailer. But if we're very transactional in the United States. If I'm going to make sales, I might make 100 calls a day. If I get 2, it's a victory, right? So, but overseas, it's expected that you will have a longer term relationship, which means If somebody wants to buy a product from you, expect to be a partner in that with them, help them promote, help them take your product to market or create a new product that goes to market utilizing your products or services. And so finding that partner is really good, important, and somebody that you think you can work with for long term. And then it's the logistics. How am I going to get that there? How is this going to get priced? Because there's going to be lots of fees and tariffs and freight, air freight, ocean freight, getting your stuff to the port. A lot of that comes into play on how that gets overseas. So, and that's then once you get it over there, like how are you going to be able to help that partner promote your business? And so that's kind of how it's going to work in a nutshell. It's more difficult than that, not difficult, but more steps. So that's kind of that.
Well, you just mentioned things like fees, tariffs, transportation, promotion, those sorts of things. But I was wondering if you could expand a little bit more on the types of obstacles that the export process might run into once the ball gets rolling, and what steps can be taken to circumnavigate those issues as they arise.
Yeah, so some of it is in terminology. You learn new words like Incoterms. FOB doesn't mean the same in domestically as it does internationally. And tariffs can be and they change all the time. So in fact, I met with some contractors working for the Department of Ag last summer, and one was in Vietnam, one was in Singapore, one was from Korea and China. And I asked, okay, how's things going forward? The buyers excited about, U.S. products, or how's it going? And they said, well, it all depends on the election. Well, they weren't talking about their election. They were talking about our election. And so those things can change. So tariffs is a big one. You can't do too much about it other than working with your partner on ways to reduce those tariffs. And some of that is going to be, maybe you're sending some free goods to offset, but the free goods can also be used in promotion. So, and it can help reduce their costs. And so there's some different things we can do. One of the other obstacles is we were just in Korea and we're in a wine shop, and in the United States, where you go to a bottle shop in Seattle and you see a lot of, not so much imported, but you're going to see a lot of Washington and Oregon and California, where you're not really competing against other states overseas. You're competing against Australia, France, Italy. And so that's a little bit different. And you start looking at your product a little different, especially when it's mixed in with those other countries. And so incidentally, Washington is really one of the best places to grow grapes in the world. It's second to none. It's just, if you were to go in a bottle shop in, a wine department in a big store and ask about, American wine, pretty much all you're going to hear is Napa, Napa, Napa. That's really all they know. And so that's the other countries plus, California and some places. But that's kind of how you're going to differentiate yourself from some of those other countries as far as competition. Once it lands your product lands in a country, it has to be go through customs. And we've had issues with people where every product has a certain, in the United States, we have a 10-digit number, but internationally, the first 6 digits are pretty much universal in every country. And so customs looks at that number, and if it doesn't really match what's in the box, can be problems there. So sometimes coding, those kinds of issues can become problems. And after you made that mistake a couple times, you won't anymore. But those are some stumbling. It's one of those stumbling things where you may have just calculated. If you do a really bad job of it, there's could be some fines incurred, which we try to keep people out of trouble with that. And let's see, those are probably the biggest ones I can think of. Most of it is probably just the learning curve of how this works and all the people that are involved. There's a lot of people involved, as opposed to here, you load a truck with dried fruit and it goes someplace, it gets unloaded. Here it gets loaded up, goes to a port, gets unloaded on a ship, goes across, gets unloaded on a ship, goes another place, and it's checked in, and customs is involved, and then you have to have a partner or somebody that picks it up on the other side. So those are the things that are a little bit hard to get used to, and but they can be overcome. So that's some of the barriers.
Now, you spoke earlier about the fact that as a country, we don't rely on imports as heavily as other countries do because we have such an expansive and variable set of capabilities within our country. But I'm curious if you've ever had to assist a Washington business with importing product during your time at the SBDC.
Yeah, I've had a person that had a relative in Panama, and they had a certain kind of a tree, and he wanted to bring that wood up. And so what you'll find with imports is I mentioned the Washington Export Outreach Team. There's lots of available services for people to export. There's not many things to import, even though imports create a lot of jobs. There's not as much free assistance for that. So what we do, for us, it's to help them find a customs broker who will help them through help them in importing when something comes in the port. It will also, it just depends on what the product is and what they're doing. I'm trying to think of another one that we don't really do too many of those. Gosh. Anyway, the imports are a little bit different than the exports, but a good customs broker will handle a lot of that for you and get you through. So, and we also have our other partners in the ag and commerce that can help if they have some folks that can help with this.
Now, I understand that you often go on outbound trade missions internationally, and I'd like to know what your favorite places that you've visited on one of these trips, and if there's anything you encountered there that you found surprising, either culturally or atmospherically, otherwise.
Well, so I think Korea is probably the most interesting place. And incidentally, we first started trade missions utilizing a sister city relationship we have with Gunpo in South Korea, and they host their sister city partners from around the world that they have for their Azalea Festival. They have a hill on the side of a hill that's 47 acres of azaleas, and whenever that blooms is when they have their festival thing. So we went there as a sister city to do that, but we also took 5 different companies with us and said we want to do a trade mission, and they were very excited to help with that, and they helped line up meetings for these businesses. We had at the time essential oil, a distillery, a flour mill, trucking company, logistics. Gosh, what else did we have? And a training company, and they got us into where we had a series of, everybody had like 5 meetings with different buyers, and they were doing most of that for us. And so that was the first trip, and I didn't know what to expect there. I was expecting, I didn't know what to expect, but it was much cleaner than I thought. They were much friendlier than I thought they'd be. And it was a really wonderful place to go. The most unusual thing is, I think I've been there 4 times. This last time we actually went up to the demilitarized zone. And I was surprised to see that there's actually like a little amusement park there. I was not expecting that. And you actually, I learned that North Korea actually has about 20 tunnels that are dug into South Korea for someday they may invade, but they found 4 of them, but they think there's 20, and you could actually go down into one of those tunnels, and so it kind of brings reality of what's there. But I did think the amusement park was a little bit not what I expected for that.
So you mentioned cider exports earlier, and that reminded me that you're the founder of the Artisan Craft Distilling Institute. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that and what it does.
So I started that in 2010, and in 2008 the craft distilling legislation went through Washington State, and so I figured there's some training that probably could happen in here, and so I started that, and we tried to do like a weekend. I thought, gosh, people aren't going to come for 90 minutes. They need longer time. So we tried a weekend retreat training. That didn't work. Then we tried 2 weekends in a row. That didn't work. Finally, I said, I think, you know what? I think people are going to come for a whole week. And as soon as we advertised that, we started getting people. In fact, our first one we had somebody come over from China, and so we started doing week-long workshops. We teaching the art, science, and business of craft distilling. The niche that we had was we would be your first stop along the line in this journey, and when you get done with us, you'd either be going, okay, I'm going forward, or you'd be going, yeah, I thought this would be neat, but it's not. But we still served a good purpose for that, because some people came to our workshop, had already started a distillery, didn't really know what they were doing, and they had or purchased the wrong equipment. So our job was to get them basically on a track and understand the financials of what you've got sitting in a barrel isn't, it's going to be sitting there for a while. And it's not going to be cash. So anytime soon. But we did our training over in Gig Harbor at Heritage Distilling Company. They attended our 2011 training, and they opened up in 2012, and then we just ended up doing our workshops there. But we had people from all over Canada, guys from China, Thailand, several from Australia, Israel. We even taught an Irishman how to make whiskey, if we can believe that. Cayman Islands, we've had several. So Singapore, just some that I can think of, but yeah, from all over the world, really. And we would do these when we were several years. We would do these 4 weeks a year, so it'd be 4 1-week training sessions that we would have. And so we were really, I think, noted in the country that we were like your really good first stop, and to get you introduced to possibly owning or working in a distillery. And we did that for 7 or 8 years. So it was a pretty good run. Kind of like if you're ever going to be a camp counselor, this would be a really good place to do that. It was a lot of fun. We invented a game called Booze Clues, and that was a real hit. It wasn't a drinking game; it was a tasting and learning game. And so that when they walked away, they knew a lot more than they knew when they came, and whether that was a go forward or they were getting strategies on how they were going to go what they were going to make and what their markup was going to be. And we helped get them set up that way, I guess. That was our goal.
All right, Allan. So is there a specific region of Washington that you operate in, or are you available all across the state?
So they're in a Small Business Development Center network. We have, I think, 40 or 45 advisors. 3 of us are involved with international trade. And I'm in Moses Lake. Christy Maston is in the Tri-Cities, and then Ellie Hutt is in Bellevue. So I cover most like North and East Washington. Ellie covers basically west of the mountains. And Christy covers Southern Washington over down to the Portland area, Vancouver area. And so we have it split up, but it depends. It's whoever has background that fits, if it is better. And Christy has an ag background, and she was a banker. So if there's a real heavy financial emphasis, I'll either bring her in to help or just have her work with the people. Ellie speaks Mandarin, so if there's issues with language, she can help out on theirs. And she's had a lot of international experience too. So there's 3 of us, but basically we have those territories, and that's where we start.
So how can our viewers who might be interested in exporting go about getting in touch with you to set up an appointment to talk about it?
Well, you can go to WSBDC.org, and there's a special page. Are you interested in exporting? You just click on that, and all 3 of us will come up and contact information. Or you can get a hold of Lou at the Okanagan EDC, Economic Alliance. He'll send you.
Well, thanks so much, Allan. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, or you feel like we skipped over before we wrap up here?
Well, I think for those businesses, one thing I did mention is if you're a startup business, exporting probably isn't for you. We really like to work with businesses that are basically successful already and been in business for a number of years. And if you're maybe you're the marketing guy and you're in a business and you're thinking, or gal, and you're thinking, gosh, I think we could be exporting. It's really important to make sure top management's on board. And, that's a big deal. And so established businesses, if you are, that works out the best. And so I didn't mention that earlier, but we really emphasize that you should be established before you're trying to start exporting.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions on our live stream, so we will go ahead and wrap it up there. I'd like to thank you again for joining us today, and thanks to all of our viewers for watching. And we will
Thank you very much. This was a great experience. Appreciate it. I hope somebody learned something and will think about exporting.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Allan.